Hello, I'm going to go ahead and get started for everyone that's here. Good evening. My name is Tina Levote. I'm the program manager with the Community Development Department, and I manage the Tenant Protection Program. So we're going to go ahead and start our presentation, and then as other folks join us, we can go ahead and let them kind of catch up where we're at. So I just want to make sure for those of you who are able to join us in time, you can go ahead and get started. So today for our agenda, we're going to start with some panel introductions so you can see who's going to be on our panel when we're done. We're going to go ahead and do a program overview. We're going to also share information on how resident tenants can get assistance, and then we'll have a quick Q&A. So the one thing that's really important is that you use the Q&A feature of Zoom to submit any questions that you have for the panel. Questions are going to be answered at the end of staff presentations, and anything that's similar or a repeat will be summarized, just in the interest of time. If you have a question regarding a specific situation, we're asking that you go ahead and send an email to our office at tpp@cityofsacramento.org. That way we can provide the best response. Also, again, we're recording this, and so we just want to make sure that we can keep your information confidential. And there may be some details that we really need to get back from you. And so sending an email to our office is always the best option. So who's on our panel today that'll be answering questions? Well, in addition to myself, there'll be Vicki Riggins Medina. She's our program specialist. And a lot of times you'll hear me say we. When I'm saying we, I'm really talking about Vicki and her very capable staff. Also joining us is Cheryl Patterson. She's a senior deputy city attorney in our city attorney's office, and she's our legal counsel in terms of answering questions and concerns we may have in terms of interpreting the code. And then joining us with our partner, Sacramento Self-Help Housing, is Virginia Perez. So just a little background information on the Tenant Protection Program. So in 2019, Council adopted the ordinance to create the Tenant Protection Relief Act, which established our program. And the goal of our program is to assist residential tenants by ensuring compliance with limits on annual rent increases and protections for unjustified evictions. So our program includes about 8,000 parcels that have 42,000 rental units. Again, our program assists tenants and landlords with questions and concerns. We facilitate hearings for fair rate of returns and pre-evictions, and we also interpret and enforce the code. We partner with Sacramento Self-Help Housing, who triages calls for us with tenants and landlords, as well as inquiries and sharing information on other resources that are available. So last year, kind of during the height of COVID and we were really busy, we had over 2,000 contacts with tenants and 500 contacts with landlords, either via email or telephone. So there's three major components to our program. The first is rental property registry and program fees. Our second is maximum rent increase limits. And the third is related to eviction protections. So not all rental properties are included in the program. Our program includes multifamily units built before February 1st, 1995, mobile home rentals, and single occupancy rooms in hotels with a stay that is longer than 30 days. Those units that are exempt is anything that was built after February 1st, 1995, single family homes, condominiums, units that may be occupied by maybe a landlord or a property owner or immediate family member, and government subsidized low-income housing. So the first component is rental property registry and program fees. All landlords must annually register their units that are subject to the Act. And the program registry is consistent with our rental housing inspection program information. So we've already sent registration information to our landlords and are getting those back. We'll also provide those forms on our website, and they can contact our office to request them. The next step will be within the next few weeks, we'll be mailing invoices to landlords that can be paid by mail or online. And the annual program fee is $20 per unit. So we do allow annual rate increases as part of the program. An annual rate increase cannot exceed 5% plus the change in the consumer price index. and a maximum will never be more than 10%. So currently the maximum rate increase is 6%. We update that annually on July 1st and it'll be made available on our website. It should be noted that rent includes all charges for use and occupancy of the unit. So that would include any separate charges for housing services, such as utilities, parking, or pets. For charges that differ monthly, the landlord must calculate the monthly average for the prior year and include it in the monthly rent, for which is subject to the maximum increase limit. So if they're charging utilities, that is also included in that maximum rate increase of 6% that's currently effective. The rental rate can't be increased more than once every 12 months, and it applies to all tenants regardless of how long they've resided in the unit. And a tenant cannot waive the maximum rent increase. So the landlord can't ask the tenant to agree to something over what's allowed by the city. Tenants can submit a complaint to the city if they believe a landlord has improperly increased the rent. So the new base rent level is allowed when the unit is voluntarily vacated or a rental agreement is terminated as allowed by the ordinance. The landlord may establish that new base rent for the new tenant under a new rental agreement after the rental unit is again vacated. And any rent increase for new tenants must comply thereafter with the TPP maximum rate limits. So there may be some situations where a landlord feels that they need to increase the rent above what's allowed by the city. They can petition for a hearing examiner to hear those reasons. So the city has developed administrative procedures that outline the process to submit a petition, and it'll be available on our website, and there's no hearing fee required. So the landlord has to provide documentation to justify the request. So it's not just, I haven't increased the rent in a while, I just think it's unfair. They have to really justify that request, and the hearing examiner is going to make a decision based on the facts presented. The hearing examiner decision is final. So what are some reasons why you can do that? Well, some of them are property tax increases, an unavoidable increase in maintenance and operating costs, planned capital improvements to comply with health and safety codes. So cosmetic changes are not included in those. Repair costs to address substantial deterioration, not due to lack of routine repair and maintenance, increase in the cost of housing services, and debt services payments for maybe a new owner that's taken on additional debt. So again, unacceptable is ongoing operating and maintenance costs, remodeling that's not required to address health and safety, the landlord's income taxes, penalties for Sacramento City Code violations, and cost increases that arose before the occupancy. So again, our policies and procedures will have more detailed information. So a landlord must offer to renew rental housing agreement if the tenant has resided in the unit for more than 12 months. That is 12 months plus a day. Evictions are prohibited without just cause once the tenants had resided in that amount of time. The landlord must agree to extend or renew the lease before it expires for the just cause protections to become effective. If the landlord does notify the tenant that the lease will not be extended before the expiration date, the tenant is not entitled to eviction protection. This doesn't change if the tenant remains in possession of the unit past the lease expiration as a holdover tenant until they vacate the unit. So what are some of the just cause reasons for eviction? They are failure to pay rent, breach of the rental housing agreement, criminal or nuisance activity, failure to give access, necessary and substantial repairs requiring temporary vacancy, owner move-in, or withdrawal of the rental unit from the rental market. So if a tenant feels that they've been aggrieved by landlord's actions and that's a violation of the code, they can petition for a hearing with a hearing examiner review. Again, these procedures are listed in the Tenant Protection Program administrative procedures, and it outlines the process to submit a petition. Again, no hearing fee is required, and the hearing examiner decision is final. If the hearing examiner upholds the tenant's petition that the landlord does not have just cause, the landlord cannot proceed with the eviction. So what are some of the violations and penalties for a landlord if they violate the code. So if a tenant can submit a complaint to the city if they believe a landlord has violated a provision of the code. The city will investigate to determine if a violation has occurred. It's really important for tenants and landlords to understand that the city is a neutral party. The city's role is to determine whether or not there's a violation. And so we're going to look at all the facts and information that's provided by both the landlord and the tenant. Any landlord who has violated a provision of the code is subject to criminal sanctions, civil actions, and administrative penalties pursuant to Chapter 1.28. A landlord may be issued a notice of violation to remedy the situation. This gives them the opportunity to either make the correction to become in compliance, or they may provide information that shows that the violation didn't occur. Administrative penalties may be imposed up to $25,000 per offense if the landlord does not remedy the violation. The landlord's failure to comply with any requirement of the chapter is an affirmative defense in an unlawful detainer or other action brought by the landlord to recover possession of the rental unit. So how can a tenant request assistance or file a complaint? I'm going to cover this briefly, and then Vicki's going to go into a little bit more detailed information with what we need. First, the tenant should contact either the Tenant Protection Program or the Renter's Helpline. It's important that you provide the following information: name and contact information, the rental unit address, because it's important for us to be able to confirm that it is within the city limits, the rental housing agreement and or the date of tenancy, the reason for the request. Is it a rent increase? Is it an eviction? Any documentation that's received. And it's really important that we receive all the documentation that's received so that we understand fully what's occurring. And then the name and the information for the landlord or property manager so we can contact them. One of the tools that we have available is the Sacramento Mediation Services. So we're getting kind of toward the tail end of COVID, and CARES funding has been provided for the Mediation Center to provide free services for residential and commercial landlords and tenants for tenancy issues that are related to COVID. Mediations are handled privately and confidentially, but they're a volunteer basis. So both parties have to agree. And the mediations are with trained facilitators and mediators. Individual plans are developed for specific landlord and tenant issues to address each unique situation. So they'll work with that individual landlord and tenant to address their actual situation. Again, mediators are neutral and do not advocate or investigate issues for either side. So here's information on how to contact them. Just to note that we'll be putting this information for the PowerPoint on our website following this webinar. So you'll be able to go back and find it on our website. So you can either contact them via the website and use the form that they have to complete, or you can call to request assistance for COVID-related issues. It should be noted that they're also available to provide assistance with other landlord-tenant issues. So for those issues that are unrelated to COVID, they do provide low-cost services. And so we also have their number for that as well. And then finally, here's information on how to contact us. So if you want to go ahead and contact us, you can contact the Tenant Protection Program at tpp@cityofsacramento.org, or you can call us. One of the things that we recommend is that you send an email. And the reason why we suggest that you send us an email is that we're currently working remotely still, like so many other folks. And so we're retrieving voicemail, but our email is answered very quickly. So go ahead and send us an email. We are responding within a day to our phone messages. Also, we highly recommend that you call our partners at Sacramento Self-Help Housing, and we have their email information and their phone number as well. So in terms of upcoming events, this will probably be the last webinar that we'll be hosting for a while, but we do want folks to know that as we add events, we're working with different partners. So we may add events, so please check our website for any events that we may have coming up. Also, if you're with an organization or you think that you would like us to come and provide information to your group, please go ahead and send us an email and we can go ahead and do so. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and share my video. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Vicki Riggins Medina, and she is the program specialist, and she's going to provide a little bit more information, especially on the best way to work with our office and kind of how we can assist you. So Vicki, if you want to go ahead and speak.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar. I'm just going to touch on some of the things that Tina touched on earlier regarding what is required when you contact our office or prior to contacting our office. As we do realize that time is of the essence, it is important that you provide specific information regarding your current situation. And so the type of information that's required, as Tina mentioned, was the rental property address. It's important that we verify this information prior to providing additional information as to your issue, because the property could be located outside of the Sacramento city limits. Properties located in unincorporated areas of Sac County or Sacramento County are not covered or under the ordinance. So tenants who live outside of the Sacramento city limits are not provided eviction protection. So that's why it's important for us to verify the information so that we can provide you with resources to direct you to the right agency. A brief summary of your issue is also important. You need to know whether it's a rent increase or if it pertains to an eviction. If there's an eviction issue, we need to have a copy of your lease that verifies the date that you moved into the property. That information is important because in order for tenants to be protected under the ordinance, they must have retained their residence for more than 12 months or 12 months and a day. If it's less than that, then you would not be afforded eviction protection under the Tenant Protection and Relief Act ordinance. The landlord contact information is a vital piece of providing that information to our office, because if we do determine that the landlord is in violation of the ordinance, we need the contact information in order to send information to the landlord regarding the violation. And that's how we follow up once a complaint is filed with our office. The rental housing agreement, rent increase notice, termination notice, any documentation that is contained in your complaint should be provided to our office. The lease agreement, again, it verifies your it verifies your initial rent. It verifies your when you moved into the property, and that information is important if we have to determine if the landlord has exceeded the 6% maximum allowable rent increase, and that's again the current increase as of today's date, and that is subject to change July 1st. The termination notice, we need that notice to make sure that that notice is not a defective notice, that is valid, and whether the landlord's satisfied the 7 just causes for eviction that Tina mentioned earlier in her slide. If you have received an unlawful detainer eviction complaint, it's important that you contact the courts immediately for assistance. Once your case is already in the court system, unfortunately, the Tenant Protection Program would not be able to assist you. And there are specific timelines associated with an eviction complaint that you would have to comply with. Homes that are not subject to the ordinance, and oftentimes it calls regarding those who are under the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. The Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency provides oversight to their contracts. And so you want to contact them directly if you have any questions regarding your tenancy or any complaints related to your landlord. If you are not covered under the Tenant Protection and Relief Act, oftentimes we will provide you with resources, again, to point you in the right direction. And one of those resources is our partners, Sacramento Self-Help Housing. Virginia Perez is here to offer information regarding their agency. And again, they are one of our partners, and we may more often than not, depending on the issue, refer you to contact them directly. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, Virginia's here with us. So Virginia, do you want to go ahead and share how Sacramento Self-Help Housing and the Renters Helpline can assist tenants with issues and questions that they may have that may not be covered by our program, as well as the assistance you provide related to our program? And I don't know if you're muted or not, Virginia, so you just might want to check that.
Thank you for the reminder. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Again, my name is Virginia and I work for Sacramento Self-Help Housing in the Renters Helpline Division. And I'm here to talk about a little bit of what the Renters Helpline, what our services are, what we provide. And we do partner with Sacramento Self-Help Housing, Project Sentinel, and Legal Services of Northern California. Sorry. And what we provide is education to tenants and landlords on what their rights and what their responsibilities are. And I'll go through a few examples on the next slide to give examples on exactly what we provide education on. We also offer tenant landlord dispute resolution. We provide referrals and resources for legal assistance. We identify housing discrimination cases. We also have a multi-language service line to help tenants and landlords. We are also a neutral party, so we're here really to help both tenant and landlords figure things out as far as knowing what their rights and responsibilities are. Our services are free. And this is what I was talking about as far as educating tenants and landlords. So these are the top complaints or questions that come into the Renters Helpline, and they have to do to regards to having repairs made, rent increases, termination of tenancy, evictions, security deposit refunds, reasonable accommodation and modifications. These are something new that we are trying at the Renters Helpline. So if you'd like some training on these subjects, SB 91, COVID-19, Tenant Relief Act, the application on lease procedures or renters' rights, please go to our website, rentershelpline.org, and our information will be at the end of the slide as well. On the website, we will have dates or like I said, this is very new. So if we don't have dates set up yet and you would like to receive training in these areas, please either give us a call. You can also send us an email that we're at rentershelpline.org. And again, that information will be at the end of my slide. And there you go. So yes, if definitely a question that you have, whether you're in the city or county or unincorporated areas of Sacramento, we do assist those residents. And if you have a question in regards to a security deposit or anything else that doesn't have to do with the Tenant Protection Program, as far as the rent caps and the just cause evictions, please give us a call. We'd be more than happy to help with those situations. And thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Virginia. So that really concludes our presentation. So at this point, we'd like to open it up for questions. And right now, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. We answered a couple. So I don't know if we just want to cover the questions that we already answered. One was a question regarding whether or not someone had purchased a property in Sacramento that had 2 units and the owner was going to live in one and then rent out the other. They wouldn't need to register the unit that they reside in, but if they're renting out the other unit, that one would need to be registered. So at some point they will get information from us to register their property, but that would be how it would work. Also, someone had a question regarding a house and whether or not they could raise the rent during the pandemic. and whether or not the protection program only applies to rental units in the city, or does it include the county? So again, this is just a city program. So the tenant protection program only addresses rental units in the city. And of those rental units that are in the city, it's only rental units that are multifamily. So anything that was a single family home would not be part of our program. So with that, we'll see. I think we have another question. So can you explain when a landlord can and can't evict a tenant? So I think, I don't know if we want to go ahead, and Cheryl, if you want to address that, or just kind of reviewing the just cause.
So our program does not override state law. And so there's a lot of landlord tenant law on the books that landlords have to follow in terms of, so for example, if you have a unit that's not inhabitable because they haven't fixed it, the landlord can't evict you for that under state law, you know, and so, so just to let you know that there's two different rules, I guess. So under our ordinance, there's specific reasons that we call for evictions of a tenant who's been residing in the unit for longer than 12 months under a lease with the landlord. And those generally talk about you don't pay rent. That's pretty standard. People understand that one. And then breach of the lease agreement. So did you have a pet that was not allowed? Did you have extra tenants that were not allowed? You know, what does your lease say? And did you violate it? And most of the time, for most violations, the landlord first has to give you what we call an opportunity to cure. They got to give you notice. I saw that you have a dog. You're not supposed to have a dog under the lease. And so you have a period of time to get corrections. Like you broke a window. Okay, so you owe me the money to break because you broke a window. That's, you know, you damaged the property. You know, here's how much it's going to cost. You need to pay me for it. So if you cure the violation, the landlord can't kick you out. One of the types of violations that there's no opportunity to cure is if you commit any kind of criminal violation, including your guests or neighbors. If somebody assaults somebody or somebody did something improper or threatens somebody, it's a crime. And the landlord doesn't have to give you an opportunity to cure. We don't have to wait for the court system to figure out if you're convicted or not. The landlord has the right to say you committed a crime and I'm going to evict you. Now, you can still ask for a pre-eviction hearing, and we'll look at the facts and circumstances by independent hearing examiner to say whether or not he believes you were responsible for what happened. If he thinks you weren't and you're an innocent victim or innocent in that matter, or you did cure the violation, then he'll find that the landlord does not have just cause to evict you. And the landlord cannot go to court and thereafter evict you because they're prohibited from doing that under the hearing examiner's decision. So the other one that's kind of difficult is when you have property, there's necessary substantial repairs due to health and safety. Let's say a tree hit the house, or there's a fire or something, and it takes longer than 30 days to fix it, so you're going to have to move out. In that case, the landlord has to first offer you the right to move back into the unit at the same rental rate once it's fixed, or to move into a comparable rental unit if the landlord has multiple rental units and he's got one that's a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom that would work for you. So the landlord has to try to accommodate your needs to move back in, or maybe move into another rental unit the landlord has. The other one we find a lot is the landlord wants to move in. So the landlord has the right for the landlord or its immediate family to move into the unit. They have to give you 120 days notice. So they give you more time to move out. And then the city, or else they're going to take the unit off the market. They're going to keep it vacant. Again, 120 days notice for you to move out. The city will monitor it to make sure that the owner, the immediate family, did move in, or the unit was remaining vacant for at least 12 months. So a lot of times there's a pretext of landlords to kick people out, and then they really intend to do something else. We will try to monitor it, watch it, and again, they'll be subject to administrative penalties if they violate those just cause provisions. Is there anything else you'd like me to address?
I think that's good. And I think one of the things, I think Vicki touched upon it, but I think it's really important to note the importance of contacting our office as quickly as possible if you get notices, either contacting us or contacting the renters helpline. Because if it gets too close, if again, you're getting in and off a detainer, or you're getting close to that date that it's effective, it's much more difficult to provide that assistance. So as soon as you get some kind of notice for any kind of eviction or any kind of action that the landlord's taking that you think is a violation of the code, contact us so we can go ahead and follow up, because we want to make sure that we have enough information to get the facts, the information, and respond back to the landlord to let them know what they need to do to be in compliance. So as soon as you get the information, contact us and have all the details, have your lease available, definitely have available a copy of what other notice that you received from the landlord. Is it the eviction notice? Is it a rent increase? Is it something else where they're alleging something that you've done? That's really important information for us to have so we can make the best determination when we follow up with the landlord. So I think we have another question that popped up. This person represents a local neighborhood association that has single family homes and 40% of them are rentals. They understand that TPP doesn't cover family homes, but are there other protections for families renting in single family homes? I'm not sure. I think I'm going to go ahead and defer that to Cheryl. Are there anything else available for people that reside in single family homes?
Well, under state rent control law, there's a state law as well as the city's ordinance. Single family homes are exempt. And in fact, under state law, the city is prohibited from regulating rents on single family homes. But again, as I said before, there is state law regarding landlord tenant rights that may come into play, such as, is it the single family home habitable? Does it have adequate water, heating, et cetera? So if there's some serious issues like that with the habitability of a home, you can always call 311 and the city will go in and inspect that rental unit to make sure it meets the building code if there's any habitability safety issues. So please don't hesitate to contact the city if it's a habitability issue. But otherwise, other landlord lease tenant issues, the rent increases, the lease terminations, unfortunately, our program does not regulate single family homes.
But I guess I would ask Virginia, would those renters still be able to contact your office and get assistance with trying to mediate things? Because I know that sometimes you're able to help kind of bridge the gap.
Yes. Yeah, so we do get a lot of phone calls from people in the county or city or again unincorporated areas of Sacramento that are in single family homes, and of course those tenants have tenant rights. It's just that when it comes to again, the either Assembly Bill 1482, which covers again rent caps and evictions for the county. TPP does the same thing for the city, although they vary. But again, absolutely, if you live in a single family home and you have questions about your rights, please give us a call and we can answer those questions for you.
And one thing to know is that if you go to our website, cityofsacramento.org/TPP, you can actually find the link to connect to Renters Helpline as well as our program. So you can always direct people to, if they want to hit our website to get to them. Again, we're also going to be posting the webinar on our website that'll have all the contact information. So actually, I might ask and try to get that information that Virginia shared and see if we can post that on our website as well following the meeting, just so that people understand how to contact us, because we do get that it's a little difficult for people in single family homes because they don't have the same level of protections as people in multifamily homes, but they still have some rights and protections. So it's important that they understand who they can contact to get assistance, as well as the Mediation Center. Again, it's low cost and that might be another option for folks, but I probably would have them start with the Renters Helpline. So I don't see any other questions. I don't know if there's any other questions folks want to ask, or if there's any other comments that anyone on the panel has. I mean, I think the main thing that's important is that we're always going to be working on improving the program and ongoing outreach and providing information. So if you visit our website, there's an ability to go ahead and sign up to get updates for when our website is updated. And so that's great. So you can see when there's forms, you'll be able to get updated when we're doing additional webinars. So I would strongly urge you, if you're interested in having information, again, if you have an organization like a neighborhood association, or you're a tenants group or landlord property managers group, and you think it'd be helpful for us to share information, we really want to make sure that both landlords and tenants understand their rights and responsibilities under our program and what resources are available to them to kind of assist them. So I'll just leave it to see if the panel has anything else. Cheryl, you look like you might have a comment.
There was one question from a landlord about if they're prohibited from increasing the rent because of COVID. Now, the state law and the city's ordinance have a 6% rent cap, and that applies. Okay, but so the landlord, even with COVID, could increase the rent by that 6%. But if a tenant has COVID financial impacts, under state law, SB, I think it's 91 now, that all the tenant has to do is tell the landlord they're having financial impacts because of COVID, whether the job loss or increased cost because of COVID. And then they have to sign the declaration the landlord provides to them. They have to pay whatever they can afford, whatever amount that may be. And then the landlord cannot evict them. And that protection goes through this coming June. After that, you're gonna have to pay your regular rents starting in July. And the back rent you owe, the landlord can only collect through the small claims court process. They cannot evict you for not paying the back rent. So again, that's for COVID. If you provided the declaration and you had COVID financial impact, there's those rules under state law. And I believe we did post some information about that on our website as well.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say on our website, we actually have a link to a COVID page that specifically has information that's related to COVID landlord tenant issues. It has a link to the state's page. So it kind of outlines a little bit of background regarding the city briefly had some information available for protecting folks earlier last year, and then the state kicked in its program. So we have a bit of a summary of the background. We have a link to the state's program, and then we also have information for commercial tenants. And again, land tenants are to pay 25% of the rent. Is that correct?
That's commercial, so that's not residential.
So again, the website will have all the information available for folks. And I think that that's what's really nice. And if you'll see actually in the chat, I've put it to the panelists and the attendees is kind of our website information. And so what we're really trying to do is have that be a place where you can land and then link to other resources to get information that you need. So you can land there. We have the link to the Mediation Center. We have the link to the Renters Helpline. We have a link to all the information related to COVID. So we're hoping that that helps you kind of be able to navigate through some of the different issues that come up. So again, is there anything else that anyone else on the panel would like to share before we wrap up our webinar today?
I have to correct what I said. For the COVID residential, you do have to pay 25%. That's what the state law says. So there is that minimum floor you have to pay to get the protections. And under the state's program, the eviction courts are actually the ones that enforce it. The eviction courts are going to tell the landlord you can't evict because the tenant provided the documentation and the declaration and they paid 25%. So that is how it gets enforced through the court system.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
So Vicki, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to add that the moratorium as it stands now under the state, that's SB 91, is set to expire June 30th, 2021. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, great. Thank you. That was actually something very good to share. And one of the things that folks should note in terms of what's happened in the past is that should there be extensions, they tend to happen at the very last minute. So typically any extensions have happened. The last one happened like the day before it's supposed to expire. So at this point, we don't have any understanding in terms of what will be happening with the state. We know that the governor is looking to open up the state in mid-June. So as soon as we have information available, we've been updating our website pretty much within the hour of getting the updated information. We've updated it on our website. So again, it's a good place to land. So if something should happen that changes the moratorium, as soon as we get it, we put it on our website. And so that would be a good place to check as soon as you hear any information, and we provide a link, because right now, the moratorium is really a state matter. We're really not regulating that, but we want to make sure that we provide that link, that information for folks so people have someplace to go and find it pretty quickly and pretty promptly. So again, I think that we have shared our information. Again, this webinar has been recorded. We will be going ahead and putting it on our website. So it should probably be on our website, if not by the end of the week, it'll probably be early next week. And we will share the PowerPoint presentation that we shared. And as always, if you have any questions or any issues, I've put our website information again in the chat so people can go ahead and you can reach us via our website. So again, thank you so much. I want to thank our panel members for joining us today. And I do want to thank all of our attendees for taking time to join us to learn more information about our program. Thank you.